up next, Ben, do you want to change your name there, Julie? I just picked that up. We've got Catherine Henry, Daniel Ljunggren, and Ricard Gras to talk to us. Hi, Ben.
And Julie Smithson.
Talking about advancing the ecosystem, strategic investments in the WebXR ecosystem to help bring immersive content to the masses, because it is all about getting this into the hands of more people and onto the heads of more people. Ben, over to you.
Thanks, Daniel. Hey, everybody. I am so happy to be here. Very honored to be sort of not just sharing this moment here that we're going to spend the next 30 minutes talking about this, but the moment that we're having in XR in general, because we're just sort of experiencing this amazing convergence. And it was really fortuitous that MetaConnect was Tuesday, because last year, all three of our WebXR summits were on Tuesday. So last year it was on October 12th, and we very easily could have kept it on Tuesday. Had we done that, we would have gotten a silver bullet instead of dodged a bullet. And now we can benefit from all of this amazing news that came out the other day. And so in this moment that we have here, I think that it's great representation that we have in this panel here, because there's different angles of investment going on in the ecosystem. So we're here to talk about advancing the ecosystem and moving things forward, because, you know, we've gone through eras of the internet. We've seen starts and stops. We've seen hype cycles. We've seen all sorts of things that we thought were going to really take off and then didn't. But we really sort of are seeing things come to fruition right now. And I think that one of the major pieces of that puzzle was released with Meta's Quest Pro browser and the high resolution AR pass through. And they're leaning into the term mixed reality, so MR pass through. And so we're gonna actually have a legit device to be able to build experiences. And this is sort of a bridge to the era of when we're going to have ubiquitous devices. And I think that Mark Zuckerberg called out that we can't take this outside yet. And like, I understand that the sensors are very sensitive to sunlight and so forth, but they're building AR glasses. And so there's going to be a lot of utility. There's going to be a lot of experiences, these hybrid devices, the long-awaited Apple device, the Lenovo device that just came out, the Pico, all of these things that are moving the ecosystem forward. So I'm going to let you guys do a brief introduction of yourself. We're here for the subject matter expertise, not for our bios or what our companies are doing. But I do want to point out the reason that I assembled you guys is, first of all, Futurewei has been our sponsor for all 6 of the WebXR summits and have been great friends and partners in this. And their tagline is ecosystem standards and open source. And these are at our core values, which was a perfect alignment for our synergy to be doing this work together. Media.Monks, Catherine's company, is a worldwide agency that is investing big in XR and bringing big brands to the table, who are putting the money in behind these things. And Ricard's Captic.io, one of their properties is VRland, which is had both polys and all 6 of the summits watch parties in. And so this is sort of a maker level investment that's going on here, because there's a vision specifically behind WebXR. So that's why I brought you together here. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Daniel, now. And if you could give us a brief introduction to your work, and welcome.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. So yeah, as I said, I work for Futurewei Ecosystem Standards, open source. We have a specific team that's focusing on WebXR. So we started off with you last year with the summit. That's part of the helping to grow the ecosystem and support that and reach out with all this information and the discussions going on. And then we continued starting last year to make sure that we have a browser that's not only for the Quest headset. So we started working with the Igalia and the Volvic headset, and then this year we started more looking into like an end-to-end how we can support the end-to-end ecosystem, working also with engines, frameworks, development platforms, content developers to find the potential issues in the end-to-end flow and try to solve that together with these companies. So all in all, just to help grow and speed up the development and maturity of WebXR.
Thank you. Catherine?
Hi, so I'm Catherine Henry. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're on.
So I'm Catherine Henry, thanks. And I work with Media.Monks. We are one of the world's largest and sort of most awarded digital media companies. And we help advise companies how to enter the metaverse, what it is, how it's going to impact their business, and also on Web3. We craft metaverse worlds. We produced a number of very well-known NFT series, and it's just a super exciting space to be in. I also do my own independent research. Many of you are familiar with my intelligence reports that cover everything from, again, NFTs and hardware, and a huge new series coming up on the future of decentralized entertainment.
Thank you. Ricard?
Hi, I'm Ricard Gras, and I'm CEO and co-founder at Captic.io. As Ben said, we're a company that owns or delivered vialand.io, which has 1,000 unique virtual spaces created by its users. However, that's the end of the last layer of what we do. We're a tech company, and what we have is a proprietary engine, and what it does is optimizes all content for web. So the situation is whenever people have a virtual presence or a space or an event, and or even they want to own their own metaverse with interoperable rooms, they can use this technology when it comes to creating it, but also owning it. So we call it the white label metaverse solution for Web3, and that's what we focus on. We focus exclusively on web, just because we love that elephant in the room, which is what we're here to talk about, which is the browsers are everywhere, and then it doesn't require client download, and we love that. But also the fact that there's so many protocols behind it, from Ready Player Me to NFT integration, is all there for the taking, and we look forward to pushing those values as well, and developing and helping the community as a whole.
Well, thank you, Ricard. And thank you for what your platform is doing, because it is really bringing, it's making WebXR a bit more accessible in a social VR front. Hubs and Frame, which we also have watch parties in. The three of you are really the sort of de facto WebXR immersive experiences that are going right now. I'm sure there are tons of them in stealth mode, but we're here with the WebXR summits because we want to advocate for the growth of this industry. And so that's sort of the theme of this panel, advancing the ecosystem. And so we're here to talk about the challenges to growth and the factors that will contribute to the success of it. So I think that I want to start with sort of the DNA of what this series was about, which is advocacy for cooperation. And we had a series called Meta Traversal that pushed out a series of first Zoom calls. Then we did a streaming show. Then we did a play at AWE, and it really was touching when Neil Trevitt, who hosted a panel earlier, the chair of the Metaverse Standards Forum, said that was instrumental in that. And the cooperation factor of it, I think, is really so important for the industry. And I think that one of the things that I love about the XR ecosystem and the XR community is the cooperation factor. And I don't want to call out any of the other communities, but there's something special. There's a lot of sort of love going on here with this community. And so we're helping each other going forward. There's a lot of co-opetition, if you will, going on in this space. So Mark Zuckerberg sort of passively innuendoed Apple the other day with lock-in, and advocated for openness and interoperability, and he mentioned it last year about this. And one of the things that I find is that there is a lot of distrust first about exactly what does he mean, and second, does he mean it? And this isn't so much about Mark Zuckerberg or Apple or Meta or any of the companies in there, but I think that there's trust in the community and there's trust of the consumer, and both of them are really sort of key factors to drive this thing forward. So let's start with Catherine. What do you think are the drivers and the inhibitors for consumer and community trust?
That's a really big question. And there are a couple of things around that. I think a lot of it's just a misconception about the value of the metaverse in the longer term. And of course, I think people need to understand that we need to advance what I call the plumbing of hardware. But this is going to take longer. I say that the future is fast and slow in the sense that we're talking about a lot of stuff today that's not going to really come into fruition, particularly on the AR side, for a number of years. And so there's a lot of hype, but then the reality is we still do have to build out some of these worlds. They're not fully populated yet. And some of the capabilities aren't there. But I really, really, really enjoyed the vision that Zuckerberg mapped out in his presentation. The challenge, of course, is Web 2. We had so many problems about data security, all of the issues around social media generally, and the lack of a regulatory framework as we start already to push into this a 3D web. So I think going forward, we're going to have to prove a little bit more utility, and I think that the enterprise first approach is probably a sound one. It's kind of like with PCs. Everybody had a desktop PC primarily for work and school, and then it became something that we started to use more broadly. And if you think back about apps, the app ecosystem, we probably didn't have those until 7 years before you had you could download an app and actually order an Uber. So again, put things in perspective. It's about just having time for the entire ecosystem to evolve and for people to actually try it, even unwittingly, and find out that it's actually pretty magical, especially in a headset. But even if you can get around on a 3D web like a Verbella or something else, it's pretty great.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. So Ricard, what's driving us here and what's pushing us back?
I think what you said before, it's a really complex issue in the sense that you mentioned Meta, and then what comes to mind is, of course, they have to get a balance between openness and walled gardens models, which is what they used to, right? So for many decades now, anybody who's been into software, and specifically games and virtual worlds, the experiences. So they said, here's our software, users either use it or be a creator or a user. And if you're an audience member, then you have to download it. And then they own that. I want to give examples. We all know that the hardware people and the big players, when it comes to all this industry, they want to keep that model. And it makes sense, because especially if you invest billions on the hardware part. But at the same time, what we now have in our hands, similar to Web 1. So if you ask Tim Berners-Lee, did you ever imagine that you would lose control of this? Did you ever imagine the trust, the community, blah, 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 you would literally lose any sense of ownership at that point, and you give away that invention over to a different type of animal, not just users, but also corporations. I think we are in the process of seeing that. I think the word trust is very, very, very cool that you say it, because you do have to develop it. I think, however, as users, we've been there before. So I don't think we're going to fool anybody anytime soon anymore. I think that's good. I think that also the sector, the Web3 sector, the sector as an industry, it's an evolving industry, is actually really well, perhaps hypercritical sometimes. I think that's healthy. And let's see where we end up. I think Catherine said it. We are in a fluid space, in a moving space, and we all have to play our part there. Where we will end up, we don't know. But I think the difficulty now is in Zuckerberg's hand or court, because to get balance right, it's going to prove hard.
Indeed. Daniel, so from where you sit, what are these economy drivers that are essential in these next critical few years to get that adoption, both enterprise and consumer?
Yeah, so I liked what Ricard said about the user, because as we know, in the end, it's the user that will be paying for all of this, right? So it needs to be worth paying for. And we talked about openness and so on, and I think Meta did a good job yesterday, actually promoting a lot of partnerships and openness in moving avatars and digital assets, and even accessories being open to provide to the Meta Quest and so on. So I think they're doing a good job. But otherwise, to drive the business forward, I think it's usually the things that we know already. So like on the user side, they're looking for useful content, and in the end, with the AR glasses, you need something that's daily useful, that makes your life easier. That's for sure. And on the development and creator side, it's the things like easy to use tools, standards that are reliable and implemented, openness in terms of WebXR and browsers. I mentioned that already, right? Today, most WebXR experiences are optimized for one hardware and one browser. And there's a growing ecosystem. So diversity on the hardware side is really important. And then have the tools like browsers, and have the on the creator side, have the development tools working well. All of that will help drive the industry forward more quickly. And then in the end, having useful privacy policy, user-friendly experiences, something that helps you in your daily life, taking care of your privacy, your data, all of that needs to happen. And again, in the end, it's if the user is not willing to pay for this, it will never happen. So that's, I think, what drives it in the end.
That is a key point. Is it has to be worth it. And I think that what's interesting about this moment that we're in is the Quest Pro has a $1,500 price tag, and so it's not a consumer level device. I mean, I'm sure that there are enthusiasts out there who are willing to part with it. I had to part with it because I need it for work, because this whole AR VR pass-through era that's coming in right now is to develop this content on high-end devices. So what we're going to see is this arc where the Quest 3 will come out, and it will have a more consumer-friendly price tag, and it may not have all the pro features, but it'll have a higher-end rendering capability, a better user experience. And so we're targeting the content of 2025, 2026 in what we're building in 2023 and 24. And so this is the moment that I'm talking about here. And so before we continue, I just want to say goodbye to Catherine, because she warned us that her battery was going to be gone, so I don't expect her back. Thank you for being here, Catherine. When you watch the recording of this, we'll carry on without you, but I was hoping to get an answer to the next stage of the discussion from you in terms of use cases, because, when it comes to is it worth it for the consumer, we have to have use cases. And one of the things that I think a lot about is, besides gaming, which has been sort of a big economic driver for the space, there is the enterprise sector, of course. And so enterprise has been waiting for a device like the Quest Pro to come out, especially for, take for example, Tim Coca from SourceScoot before, from the Independent Makers Panel. He pointed out, because the work that he does is he's creating these experiences. And one of the first talks that I saw Julie make, right before I actually met Julie, she was talking about, what it's good for, which is one of them was things that are dangerous. And so you can replicate experiences with it, but you also there's the level of danger where you don't want to be physically in danger. There's where the work that you're doing, you don't want to break something. So being able to virtually do these things, this is a big enterprise use case. So utility, I think, is very important. And when we talk about porting from device, going the progression from desktop to laptop to mobile to ultimately the headset, we're going to need to have things to do, and we're going to need stuff like calendars and email and communications, things that we have on the watch. So what are Daniel, why don't you pick this one back up, use cases, and what is it going to take to be able to win the hearts and minds of this community, or of like the broader public? The community's already all in.
Yeah, so use cases, I think we have to think about it in terms of VR to MR to AR, because it's very different if you just bundle everything into XR. And I think VR will prove more and more important, not only for gaming, which that's where it started, and dangerous environments. I remember the HTC Vive. You remember the trampoline you tried out, like in 2015? You were like on a trampoline on a skyscraper, and that was kind of a scary experience. And I was afraid of doing that because of the immersiveness. But otherwise, as we know, VR in terms of learning, social collaboration, VR, 360 VR videos, we heard about that earlier today. So all of that will grow, and with the cheaper, better headsets, the VR space will grow. And I really enjoyed what Jonathan Hale said earlier when he said that the VR will replace the PC, and AR will replace the smartphone. So I think that will happen in the end. So going from VR to MR, there will be a lot of still indoor experiences, useful applications, I'm sure, built on MR, and then eventually we'll go towards AR glasses as a complementing device where you will have these daily use cases. Right click on physical objects to know more, get your navigation, get your unintrusive notifications, instead of it's like today you're driving and get a text message in your pocket, and you're really urged to look at what that is, and that's a safety thing as well. So everything will be built into your glasses and make it more useful. And maybe also, if I'm still on the right track, we heard before the easy transition from the 2D web page to 3D environment. Every web page, 2D web page in the future will have a 3D component and 3D access as well. I think all of that will drive adoption. Those kind of use cases like commerce, I think every like Adidas.com or whatever, it's not only about the 3D object when you're buying it. There's a link to click, and you send the link to your headset, and then you're inside an environment. I think that will happen, that kind of easy connection between 2D and 3D. I think all of that will make it more into daily use case in combination with the more accessible and better and cheaper headsets. I think that's a lot what will drive it. So I think we'll get there. And there's been a lot of references back to, like I think you talked about before, Ben, that there are a lot of naysayers, and even if the people have tried VR, maybe they don't still trust it. But those are the same people, and maybe we were one of those that in 2007 we looked at the iPhone and the big screen, it get dirty with your fingers. Or watching videos on a smartphone or smartwatches. Why would you need a smartwatch when you can check the time on your smartphone, right? But we were all wrong, or everyone was wrong, because it all happened. So I think this will happen as well. It's like we're in a stage where, yeah.
Since you brought up the iPhone, the thing that first came to mind there was Flash. And, it was Steve Jobs that killed Flash. It took a decade, but Flash was the most ubiquitous, ahead of its time engine that allowed experiences for audio and video and animations and vector graphics on the web. And it was so powerful. And I, as a Flash developer, having all of those experiences that I created in the first 15 years of my career lost forever. Like, you can't load my work. My portfolio's dead. And I think that deep down, that's one of the things that sort of burns inside of me that makes me do this work right now, to advocate for standards, because I don't want to see that happen. That's why I really see WebXR being something that is so powerful. So do you want to pick up on that? And I just want to drop something like into the conversation here, which is the experience economy. You mentioned experience, Daniel. So like let's lead this into the experience economy, Ricard. Like, what do you, see our use cases for consumer experiences being driven by this new medium.
I can see why you put the panel together in this way now. As you were talking about hardware and software, both of you, where to me the use case is all about the content side. So what I find very exciting is that obviously we want to work with both enterprise, but we all work with creators, whomever that may be, from influencers to game developers and so on. And those two case studies to me, that's all about the quality of the content. But when you look into research, most of the content that people want to create there, want to see there as users, is virtual game experiences. But when you look deeper, what is that? Is that a game? Is that a virtual concert? Is that a socially rich interactive experience with friends? That innovation is really, really exciting to us. And an example of a case study of a hardware manufacturer I should not probably mention because it's pointless anyway. But what I like about that is studies collaboratively. So instead of having a chief metaverse officer, which I think is a beautiful concept, and I think some companies, it might work with with them. What they do is they have a metaverse think tank. So they have people from HR, marketing, legal, IT, and security, and then the other departments that might lead the business side of things. And what they do is they work together, they meet often, they share knowledge, and they choose a case study internally. And once they're ready, they go out. And they go out with a proper strategy. I think that evolution in terms of that maturing of the case study at brand level, or at when it comes to a game developer, also you prototype and then you go out with a concept. And NFT with crypto wallet, no crypto wallet, doesn't matter. It's all about getting yourself, and that's the part that excites me the most. And it's about content innovation. So it's those cases being developed right now that I found hugely exciting. And I think the hardware part, it's the entry level for that is so high that to me is like there's going to be format wars here and there, and one day we'll have fantastic AR lenses that will also maybe double up into VR. That would be wonderful, and we will not be able to live without it, just like we can't live without a phone today. But the point is, before we get to that, we can already deliver a lot of it, and that's exciting to us because we're browser based, because all the protocols are already there. We're already multiplayer. We're already multi-device. So it's like, what are we waiting for? It's like, we really want to make this content, these use cases, don't have to wait 6 to 10 years. Game developers think that the metaverse is going to take, according to Statista. This is reasonably recent. So yeah, exciting times. For sure.
Well, depending on who you talk to, the arc of this, like the percentages, the CAGR, the compound annual growth rate of this industry, is pretty much unanimously predicted by all the analysts to be a hockey stick for the next couple of years, no matter what percentages we wind up with. But I knew the hook was coming. Daniel beat me to it. Here we go. We are about to move on to the next phase, which is going to be a really interesting hour. So let me just sort of wrap up this panel by, first of all, thanking you, Daniel and Ricard and Catherine, for being with us here. Boy, it goes so fast when you're actually on the air. But it was a pleasure having a conversation with you guys. One thing that I'd like to wrap up with is that Meta gets hated on a lot, as all big companies do, even Apple does. But I think it's really important to recognize the investment in the ecosystem and the risk that is being taken here is really significant and important, because we wouldn't really be having this conversation about XR or WebXR without this investment in it. And I'm just thrilled. Like when I opened up my feed yesterday morning after Meta Connect, and I saw Jacob Rossi's post about what's going to happen with AR pass-through, I was just like, oh my God. I was so glad that I already ordered my Quest Pro, because I cannot wait to unbox that thing and start working on it. So I want to thank Meta for actually doing it. And I really hope that in terms of all the criticism that they get, which is justified for a lot of their previous policies, that if they walk the talk with what Mark Zuckerberg was saying, then everything's going to be okay. I really I want to see interoperability. I want to see user agency prevail in this. So with that, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Daniel, for coming in to give us the hook, and it's right on the nose. So I'm going to turn us off. I'm going to bring Julie back on. Stand by, Julie. Here you come.
Hello,
Here
Erwin.
we go. Bye.